Did you know that 65% of marketing leaders in APAC view ABM as a crucial part of their marketing spend? And that the emergence of generative AI is transforming the marketing landscape? Want to learn more marketing insights? Well, download the 2023 State of Account-Based Marketing in APAC report with the link in the pod description. You'll have valuable data points and key takeaways all at your fingertips after the single click of the download button. Get your copy now and find out how you can transform your ABM game today. What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm Shaheen Hoda with Xgrowth, and today I'm talking to Ursula Ringham, Head of Global Influencer Marketing at SAP, about B2B influencer marketing and how it intersects with AI. There is a lot of development in this space, both on the B2C and the B2B front. So I'm excited to dive in and explore a little bit more in terms of what is happening, what's on Ursula's radar, and a lot more. So tune in. Ursula, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive in and talk about influencer marketing with you.
Absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to this conversation and also incorporating AI here. But let's start with, I want to hear how, can you walk us through SAP's approach and your approach to identifying and selecting influencers in the B2B space?
Great question. So how do you identify influencers? Shaheen, this is probably, one of the first questions I always get asked. I speak at a lot of different events and I do advise people, on how to start their own programs. And I must emphasize, if you don't know what SAP is, go look it up. It's not the sap that comes out of a maple tree. We're a software company, one of the largest enterprise software companies in the world, and over 180, 200 billion. That's what our market cap is worth. And B2B is very different than B2C when it comes to influencer marketing. And so influencer marketing, I think everyone thinks of Instagram, TikTok, and, like a Kim Kardashian. That's like hawking some kind of product out there. But do they really know the product? I mean, a lot of these products, you can eat it, you can taste it, you can put it on your face, your hands, whatever it is. So it's very different. B2B software, you don't do that. And so when you're looking for an influencer, what we want to do is we're not finding people that, the type of influencers I work with, our team, we're looking for external thought leaders. So we're not looking for people to endorse the product, to say, yes, I've used it. That's for customers. And our customers are obviously very good influencers, but they don't usually have the social reach that like a thought leader would have. And so a lot of times we'll pair a thought leader with a customer so they can jointly tell the story. But the thought leaders that we look for are those people that have industry experience. Maybe they are someone who's been in the HR space a long time. Maybe they are someone who's a cloud developer. Maybe now there's someone who is a data scientist, maybe has been studying or actually executing on AI, and they're a known entity. And what I mean by a known entity is they have a large social media following. So on the B2B side of things, like on LinkedIn, we have a couple of our influencers that are data scientists that educate and advise people on, AI, and they have like 100,000 followers. And they have a lot of followers because the information that they are putting out there is educational, it's informative. They're talking about things that are top of mind, what's happening in tech right now around businesses. And we never ask them to sell our product. It's more just they're being educated about what we do, and then they tell their audience about it. And always in any of the content we create with them, the call to action is, well, if this is of interest to you, whatever was just being discussed, usually it's like a business challenge, click over here to check it out more. And that's when then you go to SAP's website. And so finding influencers, it is difficult. You have to really know what you're doing. And, people on my team, not everyone has the superpower of research. There are 3 of us on the team. We have a team of 7. and 3 of us are really good at it. And we go down the rabbit hole. We have a lot of different tools we use. And what I mean by the rabbit hole is, you start to click on content, and then you see maybe this one influencer you're interested in, and then you see a comment made by another influencer, and then you're looking at that influencer and going down the rabbit hole of what they're doing. And bottom line is, I tell my team, read, watch, and listen to everything you see with these influencers. So it's not just the follower count. It's not just engagement, which is obviously essential. You want to make sure that people are engaging with their content. But if you read something and it kind of sucks, guess what? Your prospects probably won't want to read it. If you are watching a video and you don't really like it, probably your prospects won't. And same for a podcast. If you're listening to a podcast and it doesn't resonate, probably your audience that you're trying to target won't either. And so that's the bottom line is read, watch, and listen to everything out there. And then, you get the experience of knowing if an influencer is someone that you want to work with. And I can go down a lot of other techniques like meeting them in person and all that kind of stuff. But I think, Shaheen, that's probably a good start. Fire hose of information there on, how do you find influencers?
No, that's really valuable. I mean, it sounds like it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of hours put in, manual work. There's no silver bullet of like looking at one number and saying, "Hey, this is the right person. Let's go for it." Which makes sense for everything. If you want quality, you got to put those hours and really dive deep into their content, the assets that they're putting out, and so on and so forth. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is around AI, and I want to open up that can of worms because there's a lot of things happening in the B2C influencer space. Like we were talking earlier, and you were pointing out how you have completely AI generated influencers who basically are selling products and in the B2C space. What is happening with AI in the B2B world?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing is we are just, I think let's back up. Everyone is just starting to figure this out, even in the B2C space, that, hey, there are these influencers that are generated and created by an AI. And do we care? Do we care that I am watching a video of a said influencer? Mind you, it could be one that's totally created by an AI, like a fictitious one. Like there is a quote unquote model out of Spain, and it's created by this agency, and they have created the most beautiful woman, and it's images of her, and she's getting like $11,000 a month in sponsorship deals, but it's a fake person. So that's one aspect of it. Or you take a real person and the AI model studies that, and you can actually be live streaming or having photos of yourself up there. It's like your avatar. And that can be the AI side of things, right? So that is just hitting right now with the B2C side of things. And, when we were prepping for this, I was telling you about it, that they have some, definitely in Asia, this happens in China, where there was this one guy who was eating these chicken legs for like 12 hours straight. And everyone was like, wait, is this real? Is this really happening? And then it says in small print that this is actually a simulation. It's not a real person. And my question that I put out there is like, do we care? And so in the B2B space, the interesting thing, there's a couple aspects. One is, are people going to accept this avatar thing? I think like when Zuckerberg and Meta came out with these avatars, they were kind of cartoonish. And you look at it like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to do that. But what if it looked exactly like you? So for example, if we're on this podcast and I look horrible, let's just say I had a rough night, I got up and I'm like, I can't have time to do my hair. Wouldn't it be kind of cool that an AI image of me as my best self is transposed over me and it mimics as we're talking right now? So you wouldn't know. And the whole thing is, do we care? In addition, what you can do now is you can have an AI, scan you and can have that video live streaming, and I can just tell it what to say. And guess what? I can say it in French. I can talk in German. I can talk in Japanese, whatever it is. That's happening. And so we have to ask ourselves, do we care if you see an image of Ursula? As long as it's my messaging, I agree with it. I endorse it. Do we care? And it was interesting. I, on the side, I do teach occasionally some classes at the university. And last week I taught a class out at Northeastern Mills College here in the Bay Area, a little shout out there. And it was fantastic. It was freshmen, 18, 19-year-olds. And I asked them the same question, do they care? And it's in its infancy now. And so there's the two sides of, one, do you care if it's a completely AI generated person that doesn't exist? That's one thing. Or do you care if it's just someone like me and I'm just in my best self presented through this avatar? And the one thing I bring up, and Shaheen, this will be interesting to see what you think. Right now, we kind of do that. We do that with ghostwriting. We do that with blogs, right? So you might have an executive that doesn't have time and they'll have a ghostwriter. Of course, the blog will be reviewed by the executive to make sure, yep, I agree with this, whatever. But it's kind of same. What if we had an avatar of that executive? It looks like them exactly. And then we're just telling the avatar, the AI, what to say. And then you can say it in multiple languages. So you're able to meet people and customers in their native language. And so, I don't know where we are right now. We're at a very interesting juxtaposition. And I'll ask you, Shaheen, do you care? Like if we're on this podcast and I had a filter on my face to make me look amazing and we're talking, would you care? And so I'm going to hear from you. What do you think?
I honestly don't think I do. And the reason I say that is, and not only just your avatar, but also from working or interacting with quote unquote completely fake or completely generated persona, because I do that already. I mean, I sit down and have conversations with ChatGPT and ask certain questions. It comes back with more questions, and I'm like, "Can you tell me about this? Can you dive a little bit deeper into this topic? Explain how that works." And I already consume that content from a quote unquote fake a source of knowledge. So and I hadn't thought about it until you kind of brought it up of like, the medium is a little bit different. Okay, if it's like a video and I look at a video and I'm like consuming that content on a video and I'm like, oh, this is an AI generated video. Do I mind that? I feel like that might even go away with the creation of some of the assets that I feel like the interaction is going to be, I have a question or I want to watch a video and that video is going to be 100% personalized to me. But I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that. And because I've been really enjoying my interactions with ChatGPT and their, the voice capability of the platform.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point that change is scary regardless. And that's why I'm not scared of it. I'm interested. I'm like, when people say, oh, I'd never buy something from an AI generated influencer, I'm like, well, you read a blog that was written by a ghostwriter, or you read, you have these ghostwriters that write for these celebrities all the time, but they say that it's the celebrity. And so I think the one difference though is like in the B2B space, usually you want to hear from the customer, right? You want to have the customer, like their perspective. But then again, maybe they have an avatar that speaks for them as long as the content they're providing they agree with, right? And I think like the possibility for B2B is huge where, I'm just being very hypothetical here. This is not a quote. SAP is not doing anything like this. But what if we came out with like that mascot? No, but I'm serious. What if we came out with like an AI mascot for SAP that's like a German mascot? So maybe it's this German guy, Boris, who's like, hello, and has a German accent. And we program it to be like the spokesperson for SAP. Why not? Like we're going into a new era. There's new possibilities. And, you look at like Salesforce, they already have these cartoon mascots. Well, why wouldn't they have then AI generated people that are mascots? I mean, I agree with you. I don't think people care because it's just a new marketing gimmick. It's just a new tactic. And the interesting thing though is you look at the AI space with influencers with like B2C side of it, and agencies are changing so quickly because it's easier to manage an AI, right? The AI is not going to talk back, right? You're going to tell it exactly what you want it to say, exactly what they're going to look like. So I think that the B2C side is going to change a lot quicker, but it's just pivoting. It's just going to be different. Do you know what I mean? It's not like suddenly influencer marketing is going away. It's just going to be kind of a new version of it. And we still have to do marketing campaigns, right? Like when you look at, what was it, 10 years ago, streaming a video wasn't really a thing on social media. And now you can do it anytime. It's kind of passe. And so technology constantly changes and you have to pivot and keep up. And so I still think we're going to need thought leaders, but maybe how the thought leader is presented and the type of content, maybe that's going to change. So it's a fascinating time now to be in the middle of it. And that's why I keep saying, read, watch, and listen, keep up with everything, find out what's going on. And like my team, when we have every week a team huddle, everyone has to share something they've seen out there in the world that relates to social media, AI, influencer marketing, whatever it is, because we want to keep informed and we want to, see what's happening because, we might have an opportunity then to do something new and different at SAP.
I love that. You talked about the team.
Yep.
You talked about the team. I want to ask a slightly related, but slightly different question. Very curious to know, how do you go about designing an influencer marketing campaign? So we have obviously talked about some of these changes that are happening in the space and some of these waves of modification that are coming through. How do you today go about building an influencer marketing, knowing some of these changes that are coming, but also building on years of experience?
Oh gosh, where do I even begin? There's so much opportunity, to start with this. And but it's interesting because, everyone says to me, how do we even start? Right. And so the first thing you have to do is just start researching out there. But the thing is, everyone's like, oh, it's kind of a scary thing. Well, any new tactic you use is scary, but think of it as it's just marketing. If you're doing a paid campaign, it's very similar, right? You have to sit down and be like, okay, what are my goals? What do I want to achieve? What are those KPIs, key performance indicators? Is it to drive traffic to a website? Is it to have a webinar that people are looking at? And so you have to sit down and be like, okay, what's the audience I'm going after? What's the topic? And then you start like distilling it down, right? So it's kind of formulatic. What am I talking about? There is a formula to it, and you kind of just do it. Formulate. Okay, so it's like you get down your goals. What's that target? What's your target audience? You look at like, do you want to work with influencers? Okay, if it's influencers, what are those deliverables? So is it just like right now content's changing where content could just be a link on post, could be a LinkedIn post. That could be your content because LinkedIn is so powerful right now for the B2C side, B2B side of things. And so it could be a video, and the video could be on LinkedIn, or it's just, a video that they put on X. But the B2B side, I tell you, with X, a lot of people are not going there anymore. They're more doing like event stuff. But anyhow, with the plan, goals, target audience, who are your influencers, deliverables, what's your timeline? What are your KPIs around this? And then, you need budget. And that's the one thing is like people say, oh, well, influencers should just be happy to work with me. Oh, I'm sorry. Unless you're like Apple, okay, most influencers are going to say, well, I'm doing work, I need to be paid. And I think that's the one, myth that needs to be really broken there is I've had executives in the past that'll say, this influencer should be happy to work with us. And I'm like, well, majority of the world doesn't even know what SAP is. And so do you think that, that's a good thing for the influencer? And so just like if you're hiring, any consultant that's going to come help your company, or you're working with an agency to design a new ad campaign or a TV commercial, you need to have budget to pay influencers. And so it's not rocket science, but you just have to sit down and do it. And the one thing I will say is my team, I like to say that we're like that in-house influencer agency. And what we do is when a team comes to us we have a form they fill out and they have all these different, wants and needs. We sit down and we put together a proposal based on it. And the proposal goes over a lot of different things. And we do our legwork. We look into everything. So we're like, okay, here are your goals. Here's the target audience. Here are the deliverables to make sure that we're listening to them. And then we present them. We have lookbooks on these different influencers. And, for the most part, teams come away and they're really happy with it. And as long as you're all on the same page of those KPIs, and so is the influencer, then everyone's happy. And then the fun part is once you get everything lined up and you get contracts signed, then you start to execute. And the execution, you have to go to this person in marketing for the messaging. Maybe you have to go to this in product marketing for information on the product. And in influencer marketing, our team is kind of the conduit. We're the intermediate to, work with the influencer and then work with the teams that want to come out with the content.
I love that. A lot of people look at influencer marketing as this dark magic, but I love how you break it down. It is just another campaign, and approach it as if you're running a campaign. Think about your goals, and the influencer marketing is the tactic that you're gonna leverage. Now there's nuances to the tactic itself, like any other tactic, but it's treated just like, running a campaign. I love that. One of the things that you talked about is people are not going to X anymore. And I want to talk to you about platforms and dive a little bit deeper into, where is SAP finding valuable, what kind of platforms do you find valuable right now for the programs that you're running? And definitely want to touch on, let's start with X. Like, what are you seeing changing there?
Yeah, so starting with X, the change is, I don't think I have to state the obvious, but it's a little bit polarizing. And what I mean by that is there's just a lot of hate on it, and you can see a change. And I've been a Twitter user since, 2009, 2008, not 2007, like 2009 or 10. And back then it was all about community and being part of something and talking with people. And now when you find all this hate and it's polarizing, why would you want to be there? And then also, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of hate that comes up in the advertising. And, when a company is advertising and they're next to a hate message, that's awesome. So there is, proof in the data. And I'd say like X is still great for events. Events are fantastic. Anything from like in the United States, when you have like the presidential debate, or maybe there is a game, football game, baseball game, whatever, people still like to follow that on Twitter or X, because it is really easy. It's in real time and people just know how to do that. So for us, I'd say that, we have always, LinkedIn has been a big platform for us, but it's even more emphasized now, because what happens is LinkedIn, people used to just think, oh, it's these posts, but now you can have articles on it. LinkedIn also has a really cool feature where in the B2B space, if you have kind of quote unquote thought leaders within your company, or maybe they're executives that could be considered thought leader, you can now do paid on their posts. And so you can take an individual, and behind the scenes, LinkedIn has the mechanism to make them an influencer. And what I mean by that is it's not influential, but like a thought leader, where you can put a paid media campaign on a post they have. And so it's championing the individual, right, in LinkedIn. And for the most part, LinkedIn, it's hard to set up a fake account. And don't get me wrong, they do exist. But for the most part, you take what you see up there as it's real, right? Twitter and X, who knows what you're getting? Anyone who can pay $9 a month for a blue check?
Something like that.
I don't think they check anything out of that. Yeah, it could be anyone. And so with LinkedIn, it is different. And with LinkedIn, you have to realize that you can still bring video there. And that's where it's interesting with the platforms, is people will say, oh, I like the style of the TikTok video. Well, guess what? You can bring that video to LinkedIn if you want to. I'm a LinkedIn user. I'm Gen X, but I like watching that stuff. And so what we're finding is we do have influencers that are also on Instagram. And mind you, it depends on the topic, right? So you can't just be like, I'm going to be talking about ERP cloud development. No, that doesn't happen on Instagram. But when you're talking about like, hey, what's the latest, what's happening in tech, or like developers or HR, there are people out there that do it, and they do it quite well. And they have this really fun, consumable content. And the thing that's interesting is, for the most part, people think that when we do these campaigns, oh, we just let the influencer do whatever they want. Well, no, we have guidelines, we give them, but their superpower is their own authentic voice. But I'm amazed at how they are with storytelling. And this is where, when I'm talking to the college age kids, I said, if you are a storyteller, that's who I'm looking for. I need someone I'm going to give them my messaging. I'm going to give them kind of information around the product. But remember, influence marketing, we're not selling the product, but just like, what's the business challenge, whatever. And I want to see what they can put together. And they are true creators. And so we've got some Instagram creators. We've got some YouTube creators. We just did a fabulous campaign in India with these 3 influencers, which was fantastic. And it's their excitement. We did it around a learning. So SAP, if you want to learn our whole ecosystem and maybe you're a developer, you can come and take free classes. And in this day and age where, Gen Z and, millennials are still trying to figure out, and even Gen X, maybe you have a move that you want to do career-wise. You can go back and all this stuff is available online that you can become like an SAP consultant. You become a developer. And in India, these influencers were so enthusiastic in how they presented it. And what they did is they had their audience, they motivated them, hey, after you take the class, share it. So we were able to see this reciprocal kind of effect where the influencer would talk about it and then their audience would share that they completed it. And I'll just tell you this one fun fact. When we were looking at these, we call them learning journeys, where we're going to have these influencers promote, hey, come to sap.com and take these journeys, right? And they're just classes, for lack of a better word. And our goal was around 15,000 of these journeys. We had 62,000 journeys in 4 months. And it's all from the influencers. We had 3 influencers that are they make really good content that their audience is like, oh, they're talking to me. They're telling me this is a free course. They're also hitting the pain points of, hey, are you in a rut in your career? Do you want to try something different? And guess what? SAP is a 50-year-old company. We're not going anywhere. All of your top brands that you love could be BMW, Adidas, you name it. They use our software. So guess what? You could have a job working for all these customers because you know SAP, or you could work for SAP. And so it's kind of an interesting thing where, we're seeing different platforms being used. Now, like TikTok, a lot of the Instagram influencers, they will cross-pollinate and put some on TikTok. But TikTok is changing. We're still watching it. It's something that we would not put a lot on, but I think in 2024, we're going to experiment more. But it has to be the right fit. As I said before, when we were talking before we went live with our discussion today, it has to be the right influencer. It has to be the right fit. And so far, we haven't, hey, if you're a TikTok influencer out there and you're in the B2B space and you're listening to this, contact me. I'd be happy to talk to you and learn from you and understand things. So anyhow, I'd say LinkedIn is the big platform, YouTube also, and Instagram is right there. So those are kind of like the 3 platforms that really, really work with. But then again, Reddit, we have one of our influencers does some A/B testing on Reddit with some of his content before he publishes it on LinkedIn. And so I'd say a lot of influencers use lots of different platforms, but LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram are the top ones for us right now.
I find that very interesting that you talked about they use Reddit as an A/B test platform there. They can get very quick feedback on and then extrapolate that to YouTube or LinkedIn, where they would be spending more time on a piece of content. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yep.
I mean, the example that you gave about the journeys and target of 15,000 and hitting 62,000 people taking the SAP courses is amazing. Are there any other examples, Ursula, that you could share about influencer marketing that you've done in the past?
Oh my gosh, we've done so many things. I mean, we're right now, it's kind of funny. We're right now doing our end.
If there was one that you were going to share,
I'll share one.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to share one because it's the power of community when you're working with influencers. So a lot of times, like I just mentioned, a campaign where it was 3 influencers. So when you bring together your whole community, we work at one time probably with around 16 to 20 influencers, right? SAP is a big business, right? But at one time, let's just say 16 influencers. And they work in different parts of the business. And so this summer, AI was beginning to be a pretty hot topic, right? I mean, it is right now. It's everywhere. It's all consuming.
Still is.
And
yes.
It still is. And SAP wanted to be part of the discussion. And it really wasn't coming up. And so in North America, our marketing team and branding team decided to do a billboard campaign. And, these are the billboards that, you're driving down the highway and you see a billboard, right? But what are the biggest ones in North America? You have Times Square, right? New York Times Square, big billboard area. You also have down in LA, there's a billboard, and then Atlanta. I didn't even know Atlanta had one, but Atlanta, Georgia has one. So what we did was, I'll make this real short because I want to get into the influencer side of it, is for 10 days, we were going to do in real-time AI campaign. And so every morning, our marketing team would look at what are the top business headlines of that day. So anything that would relate to like SAP. So it's not talking about politics. It's just what's that top business trends or whatever they're seeing in the news. They would pick the top 5 they would work on like, what's the actual copy for that headline? And then they would feed it into the AI and say, create an image out of it. And then what we would do is, because of copyright issues, we couldn't post whatever the AI came up with, but we had a graphic designer artist then take it as inspiration and create their own image. And then that would go out on the billboards every single day for 10 days. So imagine behind the scenes, just the effort to do this, right? It's a lot of work. So what we were able to show there was like in real time, having AI as a co-pilot, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, that you talk to it and it's helping you. It's a co-pilot to help us with this campaign. And then we'd put it on the billboards. Well, guess how then we wanted to build awareness about it. So we did a paid media campaign, and that's outside of my area. So I'm just going to put it there. We did a paid media campaign, the traditional ways that you would show up, like as you're searching on Google, right? Suddenly it would come up, or it's like, in your search, whatever you're doing there. But then with influencers, we brought the power of all of our 16 influencers together. And all we wanted to do was for them to share on their channels, but in their own perspective. So we had people that were in New York City that go down to Times Square, take a photo. Same thing in Atlanta, LA. Or some of them would just have like the stock image that we gave them that was created by the artist, and they would post it. And this was majority of it on LinkedIn, but some of it was on X and some was on Instagram. And so anyhow, this lasted over 10 business days, created a lot of momentum. And, I didn't even tell you what the campaign was about, but the whole thing was be ready. Businesses need to be ready for anything. Just like this campaign, it's like in the morning, getting those 5 pieces of news. And this was just every morning had to be different, had to be new. And AI was that co-pilot to help us create these images. And the images were crazy. They were just very interesting. And people started talking about it because they're like, wow, kind of interesting image. How did it come up with this? And so we got kind of twofold there. Is one, we built awareness about businesses need to be ready, right? That's one. 2 was then, wow, SAP is being very innovative and creative by using AI in their marketing campaign. And so anyhow, we brought the 16 influencers together, 2 weeks. And what I can say is, let's see, let me share this one result. I'm just going to dig it up real quick. So give me a second. We were able to generate over, I think it was 37 million impressions over the 10 days, which is fantastic. And what I'll say is, and mind you, the engagement was off the hook. I mean, it's just like several like 5,000 engagements. And that meant like people were commenting, not just liking, but commenting on it, talking about it, sharing it. And what I'll say is the paid media campaign. Remember, paid media, that's like static. That's just like an image that's in your search. Maybe it's in Hulu, maybe, because we have these media buys all over, right?
Of course.
They paid 5 times the amount that we paid for our influencers, and we had better results. And so I want to just sit on that for a second, because the reason I think the results were better, and mind you, this kind of takes us back to our AI discussion with avatars and stuff. People like to engage with each other. Who's going to engage with like the SAP LinkedIn account that is posting a static image of this billboard? It's just the company posting it. If you have a person that maybe is an AI data scientist that you follow, and they're posting this and they're talking how cool it is and blah, 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 you might engage with it and say, hey, Kate, wow, that's really cool. Tell me more about this. And then there's the engagement starts, and then someone else sees it and starts to talk about it. I really feel in like the B2B space, you get people like the influencers, they're more engaged with each other. Like the people that follow them, they follow them because they're a trusted voice and they want to talk about it. And so, yes, we did better than the paid media, and we only cost 1/5 of what the paid media cost. And so that was an eye opener to our executive team that like, oh my gosh, this is like serious, like kind of a cool thing to compare. So anyhow, that was kind of,
I love that.
One of the examples that we did this year, and it was a very fun campaign. And all I can say is like, it's the power of your community of influencers, bringing them together. And one other thing I'll add to that, a lot of these influencers, they didn't know each other before this year started. We were the ones that brought them together. And that's part of the fun part is, I shouldn't say all of these. We have about 5 new influencers because of AI and data. We have very new people because of that. But then we have our, regular people that we've worked with for a while. But my point is, a lot of them didn't know each other, and then we brought them together, and then they start collaborating together. And so that's the part I love is it's not just like, oh, these people are going to benefit SAP. I want them to benefit each other. And we had a group of like 5 of them were these women that now they meet virtually once a week. They talk to each other. They're talking about maybe rolling off and doing like a side hustle together. Maybe it's a podcast, maybe a video series. And that's the fun part. It's community. It's bringing together like-minded people, and you never know where it's going to go. And so anyhow, that's an example of one of the campaigns we did. And yeah.
That's a great share. I love that. I love the, obviously the creativity of it, the element of influencers, but also the integrated motion of it, even though, there was 5 times the results, the investment was 5 times less than paid, but having all these elements fully orchestrated with one another sounds absolutely impressive. So thanks for sharing that, Ursula.
Are you struggling with your campaigns? Maybe they're not performing as well as you thought they would. Well, luckily for you, the team at Xgrowth have nailed the art of account-based marketing. So if you'd like to know more about how you can hop on the ABM train, book a free consultation with the account-based marketing experts at Xgrowth to help you get started with your ABM journey today.
Let's do some rapid fire questions before we wrap up. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. I got the first question coming right up. First one is, what is one resource? This could be a book, a blog, a podcast, whatever it is that you've recently come across that you'd recommend to other people to check out.
So I'm going to mention a couple things, and I hope your listeners out there like other podcasts, right? I'm a big podcast listener, and I happened to be down in Sydney, Australia, back in, when was it? In May. And I ended up meeting up with a friend there who actually works for Microsoft down there. And we were sharing podcasts. And so I shared with her a couple she shared with me. And I just thought I would bring that up because I think these are great. So one is called Morning Brew. And Morning Brew, it's a daily show. I think the guys come in at like 4 a.m. East Coast. And so it is more North America centric. But my friend down in Australia, she's like, I listen to that because I want to keep up with what's happening in the United States. And so what they do every morning is they pick like 5 or 6 main topics. Of course, they'll address anything that's hot and new, but they'll talk about it's these 2 guys and they just riff off each other. It's very fun. And they just talk about what's happening. So that was one that she shared. And then one that I love, I'm just going to put it out there. I love listening to Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, and they host a podcast called Pivot. And Pivot is twice a week. It's on, what is it? Tuesday, Friday? I can't remember what it is. And I just, if you want to be informed on what's happening, one of them might be a little bit more conservative, one's more liberal, but it kind of just works. And they talk about the hottest topics of whatever's going on in tech, because Kara Swisher, she, of course, is known for Decode, this conference that happened for years. She used to be with the New York Times. She's a well-respected tech journalist. And anyhow, it's fascinating just listening to them and just being up to date because everything changes. And sometimes I'm like, wow, the podcast is a day late because all this has happened. But those are the 2 things that I just say, like, to your listeners, find stuff that'll educate you, find stuff that will keep you learning, find something like, if it's a book, movies, whatever it is. But podcasts for me are just, I love it. When I go outside of work and I go for a hike, I'm always listening to a podcast. If I'm by myself on a bike, I'll listen to a podcast because my mind keeps wanting to learn. And I hope your audience, that's why they're tuning in, right? To learn about B2B marketing.
Thank you for that share. And I feel like you've kind of touched on the next question, which I was going to ask. What would, if you were going to give one advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
Try influencer marketing. At least try it. When I was down this summer, I was in Singapore. And as I mentioned, I was also in Australia. And in the B2B space, there's a good understanding of B2B marketing, but when it comes to influencers, no one quite knows how to do it. And then when I start talking about it and I show them examples, they're like, oh my gosh, I should do this. And I'm like, yes, you should. And here's the thing is, don't ever expect you're going to be perfect. I mean, look at your own marketing campaigns you do. There's sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Same thing with influencer marketing. And I will guarantee you will fail at some point, but don't look at it as a failure. It's a lesson learned. You go, wow. When I was teaching that class last week, they wanted to see examples. I showed them a failure. I showed them where we had this one influencer who she was awesome in all these interviews that she does with people. And then she did an interview with one of our executives and it was a dud. It wasn't the right setting. We were using our videographer, not hers. The executive wasn't as prepped. Things happen, but if you don't try, you'll never know. And so there's easy stepping stones. I do consulting on the side. So if anyone, wants to advice on how to get started, happy to help. But you just need to push the damn button and try it.
Just do it. I love it. Third question is, who are some of the influencers that you follow in the influencer marketing space?
Oh my gosh, who are the influencers that I follow? I follow so many influencers. I'm trying to think who's like the big one that I really, I didn't say big one. Let me give you her handle here. Hold on, because I think she's great. So on Instagram, I love Tiff in Tech. So that's like Tiffany, TIFFINTEK. Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm not spelling this correctly. TIFFINTECH. So Tiff in Tech.
Okay.
I just like her content. She's relatable, really cool. Really like watching what she's doing. Full disclosure, we have worked with her, but she's like that up and coming, she's like a developer, but then can share stories very easily about tech. But that's one. I'll just put that one out there. And she's on Instagram, right? She has a bigger presence on Instagram, but she's getting a bigger one on LinkedIn right now.
Amazing. Last thing. What is something that excites you about B2B today?
The opportunity. and I'd say that's the one thing is B2C, everyone's been there, done that, done everything. But B2B, you're able to experiment. You're able to try something new. And that's why I encourage people, in your region, you might be like, gosh, we've never thought of influencers. Try it, right? And that's why there's opportunity. And even for what I'm doing, as we discussed earlier with AI, maybe we're going to come out with an AI influencer mascot. I don't know. And so that's why always read, watch, and listen, keep active, and be able to pivot, because there's always opportunity to do something different and innovative.
Ursula, this has been a very awesome conversation. I've taken heaps of notes from our chat. I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to be checking out. And to be honest, you've made me look at influencer marketing in the B2B space from a different angle, especially with some of the initial questions that you were asking. I think it was absolutely fantastic. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, Sheen, thank you for having me anytime.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make the show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at Xgrowth. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just keen for a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.